Yep.
Yep. Sweet.
Oh, brilliant.
Go for it.
Okay, hi everyone, thanks. Gotcha. So 4 talks, 2 lunches, 7 mentions, and 1 conference in 10 minutes. It's not going to happen, but we're going to try. So for those of you at UX Australia, some of this, like I just said, will be familiar to you. For those who weren't, this is for you. So you can see some of the things that went on there and maybe sort of point you in the direction of some things you might want to check out. Is that better? Okay. How do I work this? So I'm going to go through 4 in sort of a little bit more detail. So Anthony Quinn did an Experience Design Leaders Playbook. So it was around the idea of insights that effective experience design leaders, key principles, practice, and methods. So he dug in a lot into the industry sort of methods and principles that we can use to be leaders in design and have effective interactions with our clients and users and that kind of thing. So one of the key themes of the sorry, I'm a bit nervous. Okay, let's go. All right, now let's go.
That's it. Double guns fix everything.
Oh yes, double guns will win the day always. So one of the key themes overall in the conference was around about applying design thinking and applying these principles that we put together in our work and that we do in user experience as practitioners into our daily lives and trying to get those to help change ourselves, to help change things to do better for other people. There's a few techniques and a few methods that Anthony went through. You're going to see some of those on the slides there. Some of them will be familiar to others who are not familiar with those. They're really super useful, so pay attention, or steal and use. So practicing self-awareness as a leader. So he dug into the idea of mapping your own cues and behaviors and consequences. So effectively like habit behavior and those kind of aspects. To examine your own beliefs and assumptions. Working out if they're limiting or empowering. How are they valid? How could they be tested? And how can you redesign your own habit patterns to help yourself and help others? Leaders shape and influence culture through storytelling, inspire and create emotional response. This is the best way to interact with your team, so engaging them in meaningful ways that they'll understand rapidly. One of the key points for me that stuck out was that you went through 4 types of members in a team. So people who like ideas, people who like organizing, people like getting things done, and people who like maintaining standards. If you probably look in your own office space and your own teams and people that you work with, you might recognize some of those, and you might also think to yourself, you can align and think, I'm one of those or not. And if you start breaking down teams within that kind of framework, I thought it was a good way to assess. So experimenting with new work practices, tools and methods, and then piling these in your real work. So outside of your day-to-day office lives, or some of you might work in more interesting places than offices, let's hope. You can do experimenting with design, maker spaces, or even meetups like IxDA and so on. Experimenting here and then bringing those things that you learn and those takeaways back into your workspace. That's the behavioral stuff. This was kind of interesting because I thought you went through details of like hormones that are released when certain things are happening. So for example, there's probably a whole lot of things going on in my head right now to do with that. But I'm not a scientist, we'll just assume that it's all good stuff. So one of the looked at was so conflict releases cortisol, this drives attention. Resolution, so dopamine in a resolution sense, so you can think about how when you interact with maybe your boss, maybe a client, maybe your colleague, these kind of things that are getting basically sparked off in their brains and the reactions that they're having, and how you can sort of try and think about working with those in different situations. And then confidence with oxytocin and trust, so kind of going through that conflict point to the resolution to the confidence and what's going on chemically in that moment. One of his key points was around life is becoming, which I thought was quite cool, and something I think we can all probably aspire to as well. And as the last point, leaders know that people, so they want to be heard and understood, they want to feel valued and included, to be engaged with something worthwhile and meaningful. So maybe you can think about what does this mean for people that you work with, for the customers or citizens we serve through our design work as well. And then he just left that on the screen, and I thought it was pretty like decide, and it was quite sort of like a bit jarring. But at the same time, it made you think, decide what. The keynote was by Dave Gray. Some of you guys might know Dave Gray. He wrote the great book Game Storming. He's all about how you can get people to adapt to new ideas, how you can win their hearts and minds, how you can get people, including yourself, to change deeply embedded habits and behaviors. One of the things that really impressed me about this talk was that he sketch noted the whole thing live as he was doing the talk, and had like a video camera and a light over the top of his sketchbook, and it was up on the screen, and he he invited everyone to sketchnote with him along as he went through the keynote. I just thought it was a great concept and idea. The main topic that he was on about was self-sealing logic. So getting stuck in the loops of your own bubble, and the sort of feelings and needs, beliefs, thoughts, actions, all leading to the effects that that happen in your life. Breaking out of this and breaking out of your comfort zone, which made sense for a conference keynote. At the beginning of a conference, you want to try and motivate people to be breaking out of their comfort zones. And then also trying to take that into companies. So companies also get stuck into habit loops. They also get stuck into bubbles, and they also have a self-sealing logic in themselves that executives and team meetings and all these things go around, and the company becomes insanely focused on internal efficiency, and that sort of starts closing in. And then one of his great slides was sort of, along comes a service designer with the ability to deconstruct this and effectively point out the obvious that the companies were potentially missing before then. Yeah, he went on to look at research, service prototyping and blueprinting, and the whole gamut of service design tools that enable the company to escape their loop and get outside of the bubble that they've developed within themselves. If you want to see more, and obviously you might have noticed, but at this point you've got Twitter handles and links and that kind of thing, and I'll share the deck afterwards, and all the titles are linked. Probably spent too much time on that. All the titles are linked to UX Australia website, and the talks on UX Australia, so you can check this stuff out. Yeah, it's important. So probably my favorite talk, I would say, and a lot of people that I spoke to afterwards as well, was by Nova Franklin. She's a psychologist and principal at Meld Studios. So she's passionate about developing, testing, delivering creative ideas that positively impact people's lives. Pretty good one-liner. What she got into was about neuroscience and the influence that it can have on other people. So the model that she looked at particularly was called SCARF. So it's an easy thing, and it's also something that's great to sort of take away and put in your kit bag. So when you're doing design work, you can think about an acronym. Not that there's already so many acronyms out there already, so I'll give you another one. So it stands for status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. Effectively, it's what neuroscientists have come up with as a model to look at how people, when they're children and they're going through the developmental stages, how they develop social models of interacting with other people, and whether it's something that's scary for them or exciting for them, or how they interact in those kind of social ways, and then bringing that into the design practice. So the scientists watch how people behave, and at the same time look at what's happening inside their brain. So they actually hook up all these connectors and things. I've already said I'm not a scientist. I think that's even more obvious now. And at the same time as we're watching people in social interactions, they're also measuring their brain waves and what's going on in their brains and so on, and developing a model to understand that. SCARF helps us to understand, interact with, and influence others as we design for them and interact with them. So when the SCARF factors are present, the reward centers in our brains are activated, people are happy, generative and open, they lean in. That was her key point effectively. When you're able to design with the SCARF model in mind, then you can actually get people who are leaning in and who are engaged and key leap. So it's activating things in their neuroscience. So you've effectively brainwashed them. Just kind of realizing that now. But in a good way, because it's a positive experience. Exactly, you will enjoy this. This will make your life better. There's a kind of, I should have put a picture of Yoda here maybe. Yeah. When you overlay the scarf model onto the design process, it starts looking a little bit like this. This is our design process here, that many of you are probably familiar with. There's all sorts of variations, of course, but this is a sort of a very basic idea of it. When you can overlay, for example, on the explore phase, and you can bring the acronym in there, so status, ourselves, relative to others, certainty, predicting the future, this kind of thing, then you start to looking at how you can generate concepts, prototyping, testing, refining those kind of overlays and bring the two together. So it's a really interesting way of applying psychology and neuroscience to design work, which is fascinating. At the end of the talk, I even wrote this in my notes. At the end of the talk, everyone gave a collective sigh of disappointment when it ended. It was one of those talks that everyone was just so engaged, the room was packed, and it was just kind of like, when she finished, everyone sort of looked up and was like, that's it? We were just like getting started. It was, so when the video's out, definitely check it out. The fourth one and final that I'll go through, get conscious of time, is the UX of edutainment apps for under 8s. So Charlie Pohl and Simon Kran-Bouzanos, they're both the co-founders, and Simon's also the principal at Conduct HQ. It's a design agency down in Melbourne, I believe. They did a fantastic research and design piece based at the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne. They designed an app, well, shouldn't start with design an app, because they really looked at the whole entire experience of children going through into a hospital and what all the different things that they're doing before the hospital, during the hospital, and afterwards, and tried to look at that from an overall service design or overall experience design point of view, and think about how they can alter that experience to become positive for kids. So one of the key factors is that kids, if they have a positive first experience with a hospital, they'll likely carry that through for the rest of their lives. So as adults, as we know, I don't know about you guys, maybe I had a terrible experience as a kid, but I hate going to hospitals, and I'm always freaked out about it, but they've tried to sort of turn that on its head effectively. So it connects both the virtual and physical worlds. So you see, this is the app effectively here, that it created an underwater theme and all these different characters that represent different aspects, and that's an MRI, for example, so all these different characters that represent different aspects of the journey they might go through, teaching kids things like how to hold their breath, how to not freak out when they have to stay still for a long time in an MRI, for example. And so each character in the game matches up to, say, a CT or an ultrasound, X-ray, etc. And then that's carried through, so a parent can play with their kid the game on an iPad before they go into hospital, like a week before, and play and sort of get them used to it and thinking about things and used to seeing these kind of machines and equipment and people and hearing all the lights and buzzing and all this kind of thing. When they get into the hospital, they've tried to link up as much of the experience in the hospital itself, and they're doing, I just was on their website today, they're doing even more work with this as well. So the experience in the hospital itself looks a lot like what the game looks like, and that's it. So the children see the same characters, they see the same things. The buzzing noise is now from the game, the characters now from the game. I won't get off. Is there anything else you want to say? So they found that it reduces anxiety by 40% apparently. I'm not sure how they quantified that. Like, anxiety is a pretty hard thing to quantify, right? But apparently it was 40%. But certainly they've shown that the kids are a lot more comfortable with it, they're happy, and they're sort of going through a much more positive experience. Lunch was really great. There was like a green Thai curry on the first day, and it was a butter chicken. It was like a butter chicken on the second day. Just want to give it. It was good. The lunch menu was organised by Donna's daughter. Donna's the organizer of the conference. So just a quick shout out. Some other mentions. which I didn't have time. These are my top picks essentially from the whole conference, but I didn't have time to dig into them completely. But like I said, I'll put and these links all work, by the way. They're links to the conference pages. So I'll put the deck up, and these would be my picks of saying if you wanted to go on the website, there's like a huge amount of talks. This could give you a bit of a guide to maybe click on one or two that I recommend. Especially the last one down the bottom by Alex Kahn. He did a fantastic talk on novel use of storytelling. This would be the one to watch when the videos go up. In my opinion, it was really good. And any sketch notes by this guy and Elle, you got to mention? It was quite honestly one of my favorite. I didn't put it up there, just kidding. So sketch notes by this guy, Justin Cheong. If you look at his Twitter or you look at his Instagram, he does some amazing sketch notes, and it also gives you guys just a way to like an easy overview of all the different talks that I guess only the ones that he went to. Otherwise, sketch noting. Thanks very much. There's a UX Australia Redux in Sydney on Wednesday, 4th of November. The link also works, and check out the website for the details of that.
Thanks very much, Anthony. That's excellent.